The maid's fingers slid through the curls, and Marianne, questioning with her eyes, cried out in unexpected pain. In the next second, grief and disappointment turned into a flood of tears. Everything is not going according to plan. Barely dawn, and already Marianne's world is faced with the news. Her husband, the 7th Earl of Westmeath, intends to go to court, calling the reason a shameful meeting. In the era of the late 18th century, this became almost the only way to a quick divorce. A girl of amazing beauty, contemporaries winked at Marianne Jeffers with an excellent education, an example of the perfect lady. In the looking glass of her childhood, Blarney Castle, overlooking the lake, she grew up being among the 5 children whom her father and mother especially singled out, a gentle, kind, and rare beauty. Her luxurious appearance and impeccable manners, complemented by a rich dowry, gave her blue eyes a special shine. When she was first brought to London to be presented to the King and Queen of England, Earl Westmeath's heir, George Frederick Nugent, realized he was lost. Courtship flared up with a rapid fire, and despite having 2 older sisters, the parents did not object to George's proposal. On the wedding day, she sparkled like a star. Diamonds sparkled in her hair, on her neck, on her hands, but most of all, Marianne's smile flashed, a smile of happiness, sincerely in love with her husband. Soon the congratulations were replaced by news about the upcoming replenishment of the family. Marianne was expecting a child, and the boy heir appeared on time. Delighted, George gave her a new house in London in the latest fashion, with magnificent French windows and a garden decorated with hedges. But despite all this, the beauty was sad. Her mood changed dramatically after the birth of her son. It was difficult for an irritable and constantly dissatisfied young woman to recognize the former charming Marianne in her. For a long time, George suffered thinking about his guilt and avoiding family conflicts. They eventually decided to live separately. A few years later, already with an earldom and inheritance from his father, George learned that Marianne also owned capital. No one foreshadowed the difficulties that threatened their future. The beautiful Countess seemed to have awakened from a deep sleep. She shone again at court events, experiencing joy and accepting courtship. Sir Augustus Cavendish Bradshaw was her most devoted admirer. While Marianne was experiencing her new life, George went to Ireland and completely lost interest in his wife's affairs. When he returned, he gathered a whole council of lawyers and wrote her a sharp letter in which he stated his intention to seek legal proceedings over the shameful meeting. Marianne was shocked. How could this happen? After all, they had discussed everything in advance. For all these years, she has not expressed any complaints to him. She gave him every right to do as he sees fit, and did not expect him to address her differently. At the end of the 18th century, English lawyers used the terms shameful meeting or criminal meeting to describe a situation when one of the spouses discovered that the other was violating their marriage obligations. In this case, the 7th Earl of Westmeath filed a lawsuit against Sir Augustus, demanding payment of a huge sum of £20,000. Marianne was furious and claimed that all this was happening because of money. She felt that events were getting out of control and could not believe that family circumstances could have reached such an extreme. The newspapermen did not miss the chance to have fun and draw cartoons, and the London townsfolk read reports with amusement about how the Count was trying to improve his financial situation using such an unusual concept as a shameful meeting. Sir Augustus showed dignity and became a true gentleman in this situation. He began by writing a letter to the Countess, in which he asked her to remain calm and promised to settle the situation. He took the initiative into his own hands and began to act. His legal team was excellent, and the most famous Irish speaker among them was John Curran. At the trial, Curran skillfully repelled the plaintiff's attacks, while with such humor that the audience could not help laughing. The Count presented himself in an increasingly caricatured way under his influence. At the end of the trial, the judge decided that Sir Augustus still had to pay the Count money, but not 20,000, but only 10. The divorce from Marianne was finalized quickly, and the shameful meeting turned out to be a weighty argument in this process. The offended lady almost instantly married someone who defended her honor and interests. In addition to the sonorous trial, the Count did not leave his career affairs in the background. he managed to maintain his professional activity despite all the difficulties. Marianne spent the rest of her life accompanied by Sir Augustus until his life faded away. Fate gave her a long and eventful life, almost 90 years. However, even until the last moment of her life, she remembered her ex-husband with unkind words. The impression of how beautifully and light their story began was a great contrast to how their life together ended.